County for 27 years, and it's been 14 years since I've been spit on. But today, the guy was aiming at an officer and I got in the way, so that's what this stuff is all over me. Pardon me, I didn't have time to run home and change my clothes. I don't usually come splattered that way. As I say, I have been working with jail and prison inmates for close to 30 years now. And there was some talk at the beginning of the class about people not being included in a community. And I'll tell you, there's nobody that is more explicitly and deliberately excluded from the community more than somebody that's returning from jail or prison. And that is a major contributing factor to the way we have mushroomed our prison population in the United States. I think most of you are probably aware that we incarcerate a larger percentage of our population than any place else on the face of the earth. And in terms of industrialized countries, the Russians are the only ones that come even close to us. And part of it is the way we as a society look upon people that have tripped up when they try to get back into society. And if you can't get a job and you started out with a very poor education and you've got drug addiction problems and no housing when you get out, those who have come to jail usually have no means to get the first month's rent and last month's rent and get their utilities turned on and so on. So they usually end up spending their time down at the homeless shelter where everybody has a bottle or whatever your favorite drug is. If you've got alcohol problems or drug problems, you try staying around that kind of environment and not falling off the wagon. I mean, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to run into trouble, particularly when you get depressed because your parole officer is on you to get a job and nobody will, as soon as you say that you've got a felony on your record or anything about your criminal history, they got 20 other people waiting in line. They just don't want to take a chance. I mean, there's so many layers to how we exclude people, and then when they fail, we talk about how they're pieces of dirt because they just can't conform to the way the rest of us live. So that's a major element of how we've grown this tremendous population of folks in jails and prisons all over this country. Some of you may have read in the paper that Douglas County Correctional Facility is one of 2 places in the entire country that was selected by the Institute of, NIC, National Institute of Corrections, and the Urban Institute to help develop a model that will specifically address the ways that we can better facilitate people coming out of jail and going back into their community. A number of years ago, there was something passed by Congress called the Second Chance Act, and to put money into the federal prison system and into state prison systems to try to have better programs to help people make that transition back into the local communities. But, and in fact, Roger Werholtz, who lives in Lawrence and is the head of KDOC, Kansas Department of Corrections, was one of the people that really took that and ran it. He developed better re-entry programs, as they call it, for the state of Kansas. Kansas and Texas were leading the country in terms of programs to help their inmates go back into the communities and be successful. They started re-entry programs in Wichita, in Topeka, and more recently in Wyandotte County, because those are the 3 big urban centers. There were more people in prison from those areas than any place else, and they wanted to have the biggest bang for their buck. But if you really think about the way incarceration works, everybody comes through the jail system first. Most people who have gone off to prison have come into jail multiple times before they ever get to the point where they commit that felony where they go off to spend their time in prison. So if you can intervene at the local level, at the jail level, which is county jails in most instances around the country, you've got them in a situation where the local community is still surrounding them. You can get in touch with the various agencies and work with the agencies to have them come into the jail and try to help get things in line so that when people go out, they haven't got 2 or 3 weeks. Like we've got, our facility isn't at all unique. We've got a lot of mentally ill people. Back when they closed down the mental institutions around the country, said they were going to do it a better way and have them treated in the local communities. The right wing and the left wing got together and got that all passed, but there was never any money that came up for it, and not anywhere near enough money to handle it. And so a large majority of those people who were in institutions have ended up being mentally ill homeless who break the law and end up coming to jails. So the largest mental institution in the United States is the Los Angeles County Jail. And all over the country, jails function as the primary mental health institution of most communities. And so if we can at least get mental health workers coming into the jail, making sure that there are medications when somebody is on medications in the jail, that they don't get out and then all of a sudden have no medications for 2 weeks until they can get an appointment to see the psychiatrist the next week to get their medications. And in those 3 weeks, they lose it and they start self-medicating with cocaine or whatever their drug of choice for self-medication is. We've got a much better chance of keeping them from returning to jail. So here in Douglas County, we've spent the last couple of years heavily concentrating on trying to get buy-in from the various agencies in town, from the faith-based community and all around us, to be more directly involved in helping us have a real seamless effort to have people who are coming out of jail and back into the community have the things in place that give them some shot at being successful. One of the first things that you need to do with that is really figure out who's got what sorts of issues that are causing them to constantly trip up and come back in. We have a fairly large number of people who have not graduated from high school or dropped out. And at our facility, anybody who has dropped out of high school can come to what we call the Learning Lab. It's a private company that contracts with the Lawrence School District. And we get transcripts from wherever they dropped out of high school. And I think it's a Lawrence LHS counselor that determines exactly what credits they need to graduate. And they sit down at computers that have software that's from a national vendor that's recognized by the school district, and they work on 1 credit at a time until they've earned the high school diploma. And many of them fail to finish while they're in, and there's a place in the mall shopping center where people can continue on that, and then the next time they get arrested, they continue on with whatever they're working on. But we have had, I think, well over 30 people that have a diploma either from Free State High School or from Lawrence High School. It's not a GED program. It is a high school diploma. GED, since they improved the standards for a lot of the high schools around the country, a GED is actually more of a challenge than receiving the high school diploma. But for most employers, it's a giant red flag when you go out there and you say you have a GED. And then when you start talking about your criminal history, in addition to that, they get 2 giant red flags up there, and it's all the worse. So if you can say that you graduated from high school, honestly, that reduces some of the barriers there. So some of the things you have to deal with in an interview.
When they go in there, do you guys require them, like if they're under 18, do you require them to work on their high school diploma, or is that an option?
Nobody under 18 is at our facility unless the court has decided to adjudicate him as an adult. We've had a few people in that situation, but not many.
What I'm going to say is, like, when they come in there, they don't have their high school diploma. Do you require them to work on it, or they can just choose to work?
We have no legal right to require them to go to a specific program. Okay. But with the reentry efforts we're putting into place, the courts are beginning to trust us that when we make recommendations to the judges, some judges are real prim and honest and you can't tell them anything, but more and more of them are buying into the notion that if they really go along with what we're trying to do with reentry, they'll have fewer people coming before them, have a lighter caseload, and feel good about what's happening there. So more and more of the judges are buying into the whole idea of reentry. So what we're trying to get in place now, if we can have, right now there's 2 of us trying to do it, and we're running around like the proverbial chicken with heads cut off trying to do everything. But if we've got a grant in for the Second Chance Act to hire a couple of additional people who can do assessments on individual inmates to determine whether it's the high school diploma that's a big deal, whether it's their drug and alcohol problems that need to be addressed, job readiness. Right now, as this class is going on, there's a class